Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to do a little movie review. Probably will be very short. You know what's really weird, guys? I told you guys that when I was on that... Well, did I tell you guys? Well, when I was on that pill that gave me really bad anxiety problems and basically, turned everything up to 1,000,000 that I'm still getting over, one of the things that happened was I could smell this certain smell all day long. Like, it was constantly there. It was an intense, chemical smell. It was so gross. It happened first. If you guys remember when I had that chicken soup and I said the soup was bad. Well, it wasn't. It was the anxiety problems from that pill. Well, I had not smelled that smell for like a month now, but now today, for some reason, I'm having that smell again. And it's just, it's so gross. Ugh. So that's what I'm dealing with. And yeah, I've been watching a couple of mini-series as well as movies, and so I wanted to maybe review this mini-series. Originally, Safi and I were going to do a book review, but Safi, of course, she slacked off. She didn't read the book, even though I said yesterday, Safi, if you don't do the book review today, that's fine. I'll do a video, but you're going to do the review tomorrow. And she's like, okay. So yeah, that just didn't end up happening. So I really wanted to talk about what I think is so far the second best movie that I've seen all year. And it's called Echoes of Darkness. And it's a mini-series, true crime mini-series. It's very, very good. The first half is very focused on... Well, okay, let's just go through the story. So you have this English teacher named Billy? Was that his name? I forgot. Or no, Bob. Bob Bradfield. I just called him the Wolfman because the whole movie... He has this fucking this beard, and it's just dripping off of his face, and he has he looks like the Wolfman. Like he doesn't even look like a man. It's like there's this one part where he's like running out of a building, and he's like adjusting his shirt because he's mad, and I thought like, oh shit, is he gonna turn into the Wolfman now? Like that's what I thought the whole time. And then you have this principal, and he's like a military colonel, former military colonel, played by Robert Loggia, and he's really bad. I mean, he's just, ugh. But he's kind of underutilized. Like, he's hardly in the movie, unfortunately. He's talked about a lot, though. I mean, the entire movie, you could probably... die if you took a shot every time his name is said in the movie. Dr. J. Smith, or just Dr. Smith. And as well, I'm sorry, it's just so hard to get used to pretending like his name is Bob or something like that, or Billy or whatever, because it's like, I'm just going to call him Wolfman. So the Wolfman, he's got a couple of friends too. He's having a relationship with a former student. She's 19 and he's with her. And he also is in a relationship with a teacher his own age. And then he's in sort of a relationship with this other teacher named Susan. And he has another teacher who's, I guess, his closest friend, even though he doesn't really, I don't know, like we'll get into why I'm saying it like that. And then also, he has another friend who is this former student who became a teacher because of him. And it's so funny, too, because, like, that guy, the guy who plays him, he looks very much like a leading man from, like, the 80s. And it's so funny that, like, he's not the one leading this movie. It's this guy who, looks like the fucking Wolfman, and he's in his, like, 50s, or he's supposed to be, and I thought that was funny. Because every time they walk next to each other, you just picture, like, typically the guy on the left would be the lead of this movie. And the first half is really focused on, first there's a robbery at the mall, I believe, and Robert Loggia steals like $25K or $35K. And then after that, it's focused on, is he really, really bad? Is he capable of committing murder? And the English teacher, the Wolfman, he's starting to say that the principal wants to kill Susan. And he's just, the first half of this movie is basically just him talking about that over and over and over again, and doing all these things, trying to quote-unquote protect her. And it's so hilarious because you can see how phony it is as soon as you realize that he's a bad guy too. He is so evil. This character might be one of the most evil characters I've ever seen on film. So he has the teacher guy who's his former student. See, I didn't even memorize any of their names either. Like, honestly, except for Susan. He makes him a silencer, a homemade silencer, to maybe protect from Dr. Smith. And it's so funny because it's like he's treating it like a secret spy mission, and he's like, we've got to protect her. We've got to do everything we can to protect Susan. But we're not going to tell her. We're not going to warn her. We're not going to go to any police or law enforcement because they're all in it too, and they could get us. And it's like, it's really like, it's hard to watch. It's very hard to watch once you see what's going on. It kind of gave me a stomachache, the whole movie, because I was like, I know what's going to happen. Like, this is bad. Like, this guy is really, really evil, and he's really dark. He's a really, ugh. I mean, at first, it was funny, too, because I could sense that he was the bad guy, because I was like, I can't stand watching this guy. He's so full of himself. He's so hypocritical. He won't have sex with 2 out of his 3 girlfriends, but then with Susan, apparently he would sleep over at her house. And so, there's a lot of like hypocrisies with his character, and it's just like his character is probably one of the best villains that I've seen in a long time, because he's so powerful. He manipulates so many people in the first half of the movie. It's ridiculous. It's like, you guys, all my closest friends, they all have to come with me so that we can establish my whereabouts, because I'm not the one who's going to hurt Susan. It's going to be Dr. Smith. And it's like, God. But what's kind of happening is possibly they could be working together in conspiracy to do this murder. And I really think that that's even creepier, because we don't even get to see Dr. Smith basically after a certain point in the movie. Like, he just drops off the movie, but still, he somehow has this presence. You can feel his presence off screen because his character in the beginning of the movie, they established him so well. And you saw all these things like his basement. He had all these weapons, these homemade silencers, these chains. Like, really, really like a weird guy. And then in the second half of the movie, it's very much focused on the investigation. And you have Peter Boyle, you have this other guy who was the boss in Office Space. And this investigation went on for like 7 years. And so it's like a lot of time goes by and their task force just gets less and less and less. And it's really like, it's almost like a different movie, but it's still just as good as the first half. And then, of course, Peter Boyle dies, and that was really unexpected, too. And, you know, I saw online that they talked about maybe that this case was cursed, and I thought that that's pretty interesting. And another thing is that in the second half, they have a couple of courtroom scenes near the end, and this is where I felt the movie had a couple of flaws that held it back from being perfect. As I said, Dr. Smith never comes back. Never comes back in the movie. And I really felt like, after all that investigating and finding evidence in his car, in cars, multiple cars, in his house or the places where he was staying at, why didn't we get to see like his trial at the end? Why didn't we get to see any more of that? Because that was like a huge gap that was missing. It was like the movie was cut off at the end or something. And the ending itself was terrible too. Like the Wolfman, he finally gets in prison after, and it's funny too because as they say in the movie, sociopaths like him, they want to manipulate to the very end. And so even after he's convicted, it's like he's starting to try to manipulate the judge. And I thought that was hilarious too. And the judge was like, "You are a diabolical individual. You are a real piece of shit." And he's just like, damn it. And then he gets put in prison, and the last thing is like him talking to the guard and being like, "Are there any like astrology classes in this prison or something?" Like, it's really stupid and just like, that's the ending. They talked about early on in the movie that being in prison or being in an asylum would be a blessing. And so, like, he talked about that, and so I guess that's what they were showing at the end. I didn't think that was a good ending, honestly. It felt like it could have been way better. So, and by the way, Susan ended up getting killed, tortured, for like 3 days, and then her children were never found. And I found that to be the darkest thing about the whole story, is that we never get to, and it's still in real life, we never get to find out where the children are. And honestly, the funniest thing about this miniseries is that I felt like it's a lot like that Love and Death miniseries that I watched, or I guess limited series. And I came to the conclusion, Love and Death, the HBO thing, that should have been a mini-series too. You know, they need to stop doing this thing where like shows, they call them TV shows, but then they only have one season, 10 episodes or something, 8 episodes, 6 episodes. They need to stop doing that and just make them into mini-series. because I could watch this movie over and over again. It was very tight, even though, as I said, it should have had more stuff at the end. But then Love and Death, like, I would never watch that show again, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Because it had all the same, like, it had the same thing, too, where, like, certain actors would have more importance at different points in the movie, in the series. And they had the same thing here, where the first half, you get a lot of the Wolfman, and in the second half, he's not in it as much. Instead, it's mostly Peter Boyle and the Office Space guy. And the investigation, I would say, is pretty well done, too, in the way that it's shown. There's not really anything to be confused about. It's all very much like, you can see there was a clear picture of what happened. Kind of. Although you still, where did the children go? It's a very important question that I hope they answer one day. So yeah, I would say that this is one of the best true crime things I've ever seen. It was really, really entertaining, and I loved all the performances. But especially the Wolfman, he really did a great job. His character was so evil and so, like, creepy and scummy, and just, he was the perfect bad guy. And then I really felt bad for Susan, because she was like the perfect victim character. Like, she was somebody who, like, nobody, I think, would want to see anything bad happen to. And they even talk about that early on in the movie, where the Wolfman says that she's so pitiful that he likes to continue being around her because she provides, like, inspiration for his poetry because she's so pitiful. And I thought, like, she really was like a likable person, a likable character, and it was really hard to watch that first half. So in terms of food, it's tough because, it's a mini series, it's not a movie. I watched it in like 4 parts, so like over the course of like 3 days, and then I watched it again, and it was still as good as it was the first time watching it. I would probably give this movie like I'm trying to think of like a good chip, because this movie is sort of like a really good, let's just say this movie is Doritos, okay? Because Doritos, you can get all the different, Cool Ranch, you can get the spicy, and just nacho cheese. I think they have jalapeno kind. And you can just get a handful of Doritos at any time, eat them, and you'll really like it. You can have it as an evening snack. You could have it for breakfast if you're really weird. And just at any time, and you'll really enjoy having Doritos. And I felt like that's what this movie is. Because that's how I watched it. I put it on, I watched 30 minutes, I turned it off. I put it on again. I watched it for 30 minutes, and then I turned it off. And it was just really, really good. Like, I was really enjoying it, and I felt like that's what it's like to eat like a good snack. Good snacks, you can just pick them up and eat them, and then pick them up and eat them again at a later time. It's not like with a dinner where you have the leftover aspect. Does this specific food work? Is a leftover like Marion's Pizza? No, that pizza doesn't. So anyway, I would highly recommend this miniseries. If you're into true crime miniseries or stuff like that, and it's funny too, because as a kid, I always heard people making fun of TV movies. I heard people saying like, this movie's so bad, it's like a TV movie. And it's like, nowadays, I'm like, You know, you guys, you people, all of you people should have been more grateful for these really good TV movies and these really good TV miniseries that were in the 80s and 90s. Because you know what you have now instead of that? You have Tubi originals. Like, you know, they made one about the Johnny Depp trial. Like, who fucking cares? Fucking, you have Lifetime movies. That's what you have now. That's what they replaced. You guys went from quality TV miniseries with fucking Richard Thomas, Robert Loggia, you know, actors who can act. You went from that to shitty-ass Lifetime movies with people who can act, actors who you've never heard of, doing these shitty-ass fucking movies. Like fucking... There's so many bad Lifetime movies. It's like whenever I see true crime based on true event movies, I always look at the date, because if it came out after 2010, that's almost like a guarantee that it's going to be trash, and it's going to be one of the worst things I've ever seen. So yeah, I just feel like saying that, because they're never going to make TV movies like this again. They'll make Love and Death, you know, where they say, oh look, it's the new TV show where it's only 1 season and 8 episodes, yay! They'd rather do that than make a miniseries or make a TV movie. That's where it's gotten. Just like with Stephen King, Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Did that movie even come out in theaters? I hope not, but like that movie is like a equivalent of like a modern TV movie. And it's too bad. It's too bad. So yeah, Echoes of Darkness is fantastic. Highly recommend it. I'm so glad too that I watched that instead of watching Blue Beetle, because you know, I could have technically watched that and reviewed it, and I just said I'd rather watch something that'll probably be good. And so I watched this instead. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you think, if you know about the true story. You know I kind of like didn't really get into it a lot as I could have. It's just I kind of feel like, you know, the movie's there, the true story stuff is there, it's all out there, and I just don't want to regurgitate it very much, because that's not entertaining. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews like this. And we will be back tomorrow for Dark Winds, one of the last 3 episodes of the 6-episode miniseries. Season. Sorry. Quote-unquote season. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.